Well, hi everybody. Club Grubbery time, Wednesday, the 20th of November. We've just hit the record button at 7 o'clock in the evening. Now, I'm doing a timestamp on this because there's so much going on in the world at the moment. A lot of good stuff happening, a lot of realizations and truth. And by the time you get to see this, Professor Angus Dalglish would have spoken on Ben Fordham on 2GB, John, which is a great thing. We've seen some incredible speeches, in particular that of John Ruddick in the New South Wales Upper House, which was one of the best speeches on the COVID pandemic. So there's an awful lot going on. And I can also say that I've just been informed that the Ceduna Shire Council has done the same thing as Port Hedland. That's been passed. So as of this day, 20 November 2024, three councils, one West Tamar in Tasmania, Ceduna in South Australia, and Port Hedland in Western Australia have passed this information into action into their councils, and it's spreading and going wildfire.
Well,
So
Paul really, Hoodie, because I mean we can add in Snowy Valley's council as well. I mean they did pass 8-1 for a royal commission into the handling of COVID. So we'll stick more in, but that's certainly another outcome to be held aloft.
absolutely, and hopefully by the time you're watching this, the Senate will have voted on the misinformation bill, and
Definitely.
that's looking very promising. There's some skullduggery afoot. You can bet your bottom dollar that there'll be some skullduggery afoot. But let's hope that we'll be celebrating something very soon. But it all looks good, which means that more people are waking up. And one of the reasons people are waking up is because a lot of people in the past 3 or 4 years have demonstrated great courage and integrity. And our guest tonight is right up at the top of that list. Many of you will remember seeing her resignation in uniform as a senior sergeant with Victoria Police on the discernibles program. Matt Wong, I think it was, Krystle. And Krystle Mitchell, I watched that and my heart was pumping with pride for what you were doing. It was an incredibly courageous action. And you might like to refresh us on, just briefly before we go into the main topic for tonight, how that felt for you, why you did it, and how long ago was that now?
A lifetime ago, actually. But I think it was November 2021, 2022,
Yep.
2021, I think. But
21.
honestly, it feels like it's just blurred memories now. Um, but yeah, it was obviously during the period of intense lockdowns in Melbourne. Um, Certainly, we were having the tyrannical laws oppressing people left, right, and centre. And unfortunately, the workforce that I was a part of was the workforce that was doing it. And, I was waiting and waiting and waiting for someone to stand and speak. And I thought someone would because, I knew that I wasn't the only one having concerns about what we were doing. And I thought, well, surely someone more senior than me is going to come out and say something and we're going to pull back or draw a line or push back on the Premier and say, hey, you can't politicize us like this. It's all well and good for government to write the law, but you don't get to tell police how we enforce it. And that's very much what we saw during COVID.
Hmm.
And police discretion went out the window, and we were, mandated to enforce a very quite draconian and aggressive manner on, just average normal citizens not doing anything wrong, just trying to get on with their lives and being severely punished for that. So, that was ongoing. Eventually, I got to a point where I just couldn't remedy continuing my job and not saying anything. I just knew in my heart of hearts that if I didn't speak out, that I would live to regret it and that I would be ashamed of myself for continuing to work for an organisation that was literally a show me your papers organisation. That's what we had become. And I just thought, I can't be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of this. Nobody else is speaking up. And, Matt Wong essentially encouraged me to do it because I had called him, I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 weeks earlier, talked to him about how I was feeling, and he was a bit abrupt with me, and he just said, well, what do you want me to do about it? All you cops keep calling me and telling me that you don't like what's going on, but none of you will come on my show. So why are you calling me? And I just thought, well, that's a fair point. What can we expect? So it was his past words, I suppose, that got me thinking that somebody needs to speak out. I've waited long enough. Nobody has. I guess it's going to be me. But it was hard to make and get to that decision, because not only was I making a decision to speak out, I was making a decision to leave my job, the comfort and security of the only job that had given me consistency in life. I don't know if you know much about my upbringing, but I was raised as a ward of the state in a home for boys and girls. I left that when I was 16. I've been homeless. Joining the police force was, the pinnacle of pride for myself. So having to give that up was really tough. I thought that I would have to lose my home as a result, that I wouldn't be able to pay my mortgage. I had to remedy that. If my partner wasn't prepared to support me, was I prepared to leave him in pursuit of, speaking out, because that's what I wanted to do. So I had to wrestle with all those things, and then finally get to that point of speaking out. And then, you saw the results of that.
Wow. Wow. I mean, John and I both remember the days that we made that decision that you did. And it was a pretty powerful moment in our lives, John. We've talked about it a few times. I remember watching that video, Johnny, where you were sitting in front of the fireplace and you had your ambulance hat, your cap, your dress cap, uniform cap. And you said, I'm with Graham Hood. I don't think I'll ever wear this cap again. And then I'm sitting there with tears streaming down my cheeks, and we've formed a friendship ever since. And the one beautiful thing about all of this, we can all agree with, is we've met some incredible people, and we've all become like a family.
Yeah.
We're veterans in a sense, and it's great to be part of that, isn't it, Krystle?
Yeah, it is. And you're absolutely right. You just meet some absolutely incredible people that your, mind and heart would never have been open to if this experience hadn't befallen us. So it's an incredible privilege to meet such incredible people. And it's actually funny, you both have videos of yourselves wearing your uniform for the last time. I have my own. I did one personally. I've never shared it, but I've got a video in my own uniform of, hey, Krystle. It was a sort of, hi, future Krystle. This might be the last time you wear this uniform. And it was just a conversation with myself. And I've got that on, one of my phones somewhere.
But you did it very publicly. You were wearing the uniform the night you appeared on Discernibles.
Yes.
And that must have been such such a boost for people in Victoria to see, because Victoria has had a good relationship with its police force up till then. I remember when the Tynan Air case happened, when those two young constables were gunned down. My kids and I went to the local police station. I think it was in Flemington. And we walked in with a big bunch of flowers to give to the police, and you couldn't see the desk for flowers. Everyone had a blue and white check ribbon hanging off their rear view mirrors, and then we had that case, where that Porsche driver caused the deaths of 4 officers on the freeway. The whole country bled for the Victoria Police, but all that's been blown away under Scott Payton. And the things that happened at the Shrine of Remembrance, the Rubber Bullet Brigade. There was another female police officer, I think she was a sergeant as well, who came out about the same time you did, and she got involved with the Red Union. Do you remember her name?
Sergeant that came out and she's involved with the Red Union.
Yeah, she got involved with the Red Union. John, we spoke to her quite a bit. And we had Craig Backman come out as well at that time.
Yep.
Craig gave some very stirring speeches at the Melbourne rally where he addressed the constabulary on the steps of Parliament. Everyone was hoping that a few of those people would, drop their helmets and just come down and join him. It was that close, I think, for a couple of them, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, it's very institutionalized, I think. We saw it in Europe. We did see police, leave the guards and join with the community. And I don't think that it's controversial because, to be honest, during, I think, one of the Black Lives Matter protests here in Victoria, there were many police that took a knee. in solidarity with them. So those members didn't lose their jobs. So I think that you can see the polarity in the responses because those issues were politicised. Black Lives Matter, clearly very left-leaning support from the left, which is the dominant force here in Victoria, whereas the freedom protest and the right to be free against tyrannical government, for some weird, skewed reason, it's now that's what the right is fighting for, while some on the right.
Yeah. After you appeared on the Discernibles, Krystle, what was the conversation with senior management after that? Did they get in contact with you directly, or what ensued?
No, it was just a complete freeze out, like I never existed. That was it. I never heard from them. I mean, I had one boss, a superintendent, who reached out, and he's been great, and we still occasionally will check in with each other. He's a good human being, and he genuinely cared for me and made sure that I was okay after I'd done what I'd done. But outside of that, there was nothing. I'm still owed my police service medal for 15 years, and I haven't been presented that by Victoria Police yet, and I've been out of the force for 3 years now. So it was just a nice out, like I never existed. And the left are good at that. So, it's to be expected, I guess.
What about your colleagues? Did you get any support from colleagues, or did they was it by and large just push you aside and get on with the job?
The support was there for what I did. Quietly behind the scenes, many frontline members contacted me to offer their support verbally and quietly, but ultimately that was nice, but that's not what I wanted. I was really hoping that by someone seeing somebody take a brave stance and be bold to speak out, that would cause others to do so, and they didn't. And over the last week, we've seen police come out standing in their uniforms, going on mainstream legacy media, talking about why they need a pay rise and the current pay negotiations that they're having. So they're not afraid to get in front of the media when it benefits their hip pocket, but they were afraid to get in front of the media when it was to benefit the Victorian people that they serve, to speak out and say that, hey, what we're doing is wrong and we could be better. So, I'm a little bit ashamed and disappointed in the cowardness of many.
And I'd imagine the Victorian Police Association or Union, whatever it's called down there, was silent as well, like they were in New South Wales.
Yeah, they were absolutely just weak when it came to supporting the members during the vaccine mandates. They did support members when the police tape was put up at playgrounds. Wayne Gatt did come out and just say, look, this is not what police signed up for, but he could have been more vocal, and he could have come out and supported many of the things that I said in Matt's show. I wasn't controversial. I think if people spend the time to listen to it, the things that I said, I was complimentary of Victoria Police and the time that I'd spent there. I was critical of some of the responses, but I feel that overall it was quite a balanced interview. And Shane Patton, the Chief Commissioner, could have come out and said, look, she did make some valid points and we need to revisit some of these things. Wayne Gatt, the Secretary of the Police Union, also could have said that, but they didn't. And that was quite disappointing, because I know that behind closed doors, there was elements that felt this way. And I'm still not sure how somebody's career can mean that much to them over their principles or morals or just integrity. I thought that mattered, and I maybe I'm naive and I was just wrong.
It seems to be the case with the unions throughout Australia. This guy Marshall that heads up the fire rescue union in Victoria. How can you have a situation where today you're stopping firefighters from attending work because they don't have a COVID vaccine? It's mad, isn't it?
It's just bullish behaviour, and it's literally just hoping that he's going to wear them down, that, if we stick our feet in the mud long enough, that these firefighters will give up, and they won't. I know them. They will not give up. So Mr. Marshall needs to pull his feet out and suck it up. You were wrong, mate. Get on with it and get these firefighters back in the job, because you're a disgrace to the entire Victorian community. There's a risk of bushfires during our summers with those members sitting at home. Disgraceful.
He's a grub. He's an absolute. Now that other female officer I was talking about, her first name was Holly. I won't mention her last name, but she was very involved in setting up a
I know
union.
Holly.
You know, Holly. Yeah. So
Holly's lovely.
Holly's lovely. I think she's married to a police officer who did the same thing. I think they pulled the pin together. But anyway,
Yeah.
They were interesting times. I've been reviewing the last 3 years, going through old files on the computer, and when I look at some of the things we said and did back then, Johnny, I'm a bit horrified, to be honest. It just seems like a lifetime ago. I'd love to be able to do it again, but with the lessons we've learned. But regardless of that, we have been consistent, and things are starting to move. But we're at the stage where how far do we go down this path? And I think a lot of people are waking up to the fact that we're doing the triage. We're looking at all the reasons why these things have happened. And now we have to do whatever we can to help rebuild this country, don't we? So you started that process, I think, when you ran for state office. I remember you running for Victorian Parliament.
Supported David Limbrick, who is our Libertarian upper house member for Southern Metro in Victoria. He ran on the federal ticket for the federal election, and I ran as his number two. So the number two is a support role. It's sort of a invitation into the political, ring to get a bit of an understanding. And I was there, hoping that we would be able to get David elected. We weren't successful, but we grew the party significantly in numbers. And this time round, we've got a lead Senate candidate in Jordan Ditloff, and he is our candidate for the federal election for the Libertarian Party. And I'm throwing all of my support behind him and hoping that we can get him elected, and many other libertarians and liberal Menzies-minded people elected into Parliament, because that is 100% Hoodie where I see the solution for this. Politicians created these problems. New politicians, and in my view, libertarian-minded politicians are the ones that will get us out of it, because we've got voices, little voices here, there and everywhere, but we need the numbers. And I think that people are going to see that with the Trump administration in America. He's got the numbers. Agree or disagree with him, you're going to see how effective him and his administration can be by the fact of the numbers that he has in their parliament. I want to see the same thing here in Australia and in Victoria and in state by state, that we get libertarian people elected, and we spend the first 4 years of any term just overturning all of the ridiculous laws that have been brought in by Labor, all of the over-regulatory framework, stupid laws that don't actually help us and don't help our country. Get rid of them, and then turn our focus to, how can we create a culture in this country of self-determination, of that working return, basically, just to, I believe, a country that we all grew up in, which is, work hard, go after the things that you want, and you will succeed, and you don't have the right to benefit off the backs of others who have worked hard while you sat on your laurels and done nothing. I don't subscribe to that, and I would like to push us into that direction of being self-motivated, disciplined, work hard, and you get to keep the money that you make yourself, and that we don't pay it to overpaid bureaucrats and politicians, and we just get government out of our lives.
Oh, how good's that, Johnny? You and Krystle share a similar view. You ran as number two, didn't you? And
yeah, for John Ruddock. Yeah,
John Ruddock as a libertarian, and I think those ideas are great. I listen to John Ruddock's speeches, and I see the benefit in winding back. Now we had a government in Julia Gillard who was very proud to say in her valedictory speech that in her time of office they passed 1,400 pieces of legislation. I mean, I think hats off to any political party in government who can repeal legislation, not create more.
Yep.
yeah.
I don't know what it is about government mindset that think that the average Australian can't make decisions for themselves, and that the best place area for decision making is government. And when we say government, what we mean is people that haven't really lived in the real world, haven't had regular jobs like all of us, but just go straight from privileged schools to privileged universities to privileged positions in power, and they don't know what it's like. They don't know how we live, and they're making decisions about how we should live our lives. And honestly, when was the last time a government did anything that was beneficial for us? Truly, I would have to really have a hard think, and I don't think I can think of anything.
I actually can't.
Hard to
No.
think.
I actually can't. Can you, John?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Look, I can in a way. I applaud Julia Gillard for one big thing, and that was the Royal Commission into the institutional responses to childhood sexual abuse. I thought that was great, only because Michelle and I got involved in that. She went through the commission and gave evidence there as she was a victim herself. I thought that was great in that it gave tens of thousands of victims a voice, and any politician who can give someone a voice. I think some of them have done. The apology from Kevin Rudd, I thought at the time I thought that was a good thing to do, but by the same token, a lot of that's just symbolic. I can't think of anything.
Then it just goes on to, well, what's next? There's the apology, and then everybody thought, well, that's it. The apology's been done. Let's everybody move on. When we haven't moved on, I mean, we had the disastrous voice referendum that went nowhere, cost us millions, and Australians got together and resoundingly said, no, we don't want to be divided by race. We've got treaties that have been pushed out in every state that you're blocked out of. You're not allowed to be a part of those negotiations, and you're not allowed to know what's going on with them. And Ben Fordham's talking about how we're paying royalties now for when we do welcome countries. It just never ends. And it's, I think that the left are very good at perpetuating a victimhood mentality because it's very profitable for them and for the left. And I just want to move away from that. I don't want to live in a country full of victims. I want to live in a country full of people that can accept that bad things happen in all of our lives, but it doesn't define who we are. What defines who we are is how we overcome all of those battles, and the type of person that we can born out of the fire, who you become out of all of that is, I think, what's so amazing and beautiful about the trauma that ultimately everybody's had at one point or another in their lives.
It's kind of like governments are pandering to whole bunches of minority groups who are perpetually offended about something.
I think so.
Well, look at that judicial case up in Taree where the magistrate allowed the junior offender who was there for some fairly serious matters to do a welcome to country before he was sentenced. And she said, "You can welcome to country in my court anytime."
If ever you come back to when you come back to my court again next time, please feel free to do welcome to country.
Oh, jeez. Hello.
Mind boggles.
Yeah.
Mind boggles. Because realistically, I don't think that we have a justice system in this country. We have a legal system. But the justice system, it doesn't exist. And, when you have judges or magistrates, making that kind of commentary and being so at ease with a welcome to country by an offender who has harmed another human being in a crime, just totally inappropriate. And the one thing that I'll agree with the left on, which I don't actually think I've ever seen them do, is victim-centric policing and victim-centric justice outcomes. Because if you put the victim at the heart of what has occurred, that's the best place to be for the victim to heal. And justice for the victim could mean different things for each one of us. I'm fire and wrath. That's me. I want vengeance and revenge. If I've been harmed, whoa, you look out. But other people, Hoody, I'm thinking, is more the forgiving type and would hope that the offender, I don't know, is rehabilitated and, seeks a path to righteousness and God. Good for you, Hoody. I'm definitely Old Testament when it comes to the punishment side of things. But in a victim-centric model, my views would be heard and listened, and in a case for me, and your views would be heard and listened in a case for you. And I think that that's the best place for for our justice system.
I think you and Johnny have got a lot more in common than we first thought. I know. Look, I went through that whole phase of hang the buggers and all that. But then I think, what does that serve? I mean, you've only got to look at history to see how the French Revolution turned out. That was one of the darkest periods in Earth's history. And to my way of thinking, someone who's rehabilitated who can then participate in society in a constructive way is better than someone who's locked in prison for the rest of their life. But yeah, I mean, at least in a democracy, you can have those different views. So what have you been doing in the last year or so? What's happening in Krystle Mitchell's life?
It's been quite a big thing that's happened in my life. I was living in country Victoria, and I've moved back to the city. I ran in the City of Melbourne local council elections that just went past recently, hoping to get one of the 9 council positions. I wasn't successful, but I got great numbers. I was very surprised, with the voting figures that I got, given that there was virtually no campaigning whatsoever, no money invested, and it was just a very quick campaign. Essentially, there was 58 rounds where you could be knocked out. So, you could get knocked out in round 1 or all the way up to 57. And then the 58th spot is who got the 9th council position. And I got knocked out at round 51. So I was quite happy that I was in the ring for as long as I was. And I'll just keep going. As I said earlier, I do believe that to be politically engaged is the way out of this mess. Politics is what caused it and got us into it. So libertarian politicians is what can get us out of it. I'm convinced of that, and that's the path that I'm taking.
And has the cloud lifted on Victoria since the self-appointed expert on mental health, Daniel Andrews, has resigned?
Look, we had a little party on the steps of Parliament when he resigned. We were just happy that his face wasn't going to be on TV anymore. It was just awful to see him on the news, and I think it probably severely affected legacy media's ratings every time they had him on. But I think Melbourne is slowly on the improve. There's still a lot of healing that I think people need to do, and for a lot of people, reparations and accountability needs to be a part of that. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen the accountability happen for anybody that was part of the COVID decision-making, and I think people want to see that. There's also a cohort that are just wanting to forget everything that happened because it was traumatic, and they just want to move on with their lives. I would caution them, though, because they're the ones that probably have children that were impacted, and there's a lot of studies coming out showing that we just don't know how bad these impacts are going to be, because we have seen delayed learning development, delayed social skills. How is that going to translate into, the 16, 17, 18-year-olds entering uni and then the workforce? What kind of impacts are we going to see there? There's lots of things that are going to happen in the future as a result of the harshest lockdowns in the world that happened here. But having moved back to the city and, walking my dogs again along South Bank Promenade and through Crown and along Flinders Street, there is a vibrancy that's come back, and it's great to see. It's really good to see people out and about using the restaurants and having fun and getting into the Christmas festivities. My husband and I, we walk our dogs, and all sorts of people will stop and have a pat, and we chat to them, and you find out what's going on, and it is lifting, and there is a level of hope, I think, in that, Melbourne people are very resilient, and despite everything that the government have done to us, we will bounce back and we will come back strong, because it's people that make the place. It's certainly not the government. If anything, they just get in the way.
What would you have done differently if you were Daniel Andrews Police Commissioner?
So was Daniel Andrews the Premier or Shane Patton the Police Commissioner?
If you were Daniel Andrews, the Premier's Police Commissioner, if you were Scott Patton under Daniel Andrews?
that Shane Patton, if I was Shane Patton, if I had been Chief Commissioner during COVID,
Yeah.
yep. Well, geez, we would have had some very heated backroom discussions, I think, because there was obviously a direct phone line between Dan and Shane, and the things that I think I would have done differently would have, from the outset, very clearly articulated that if you're proposing that we're in a health crisis and a pandemic, well, then the response is a health response. It's not a police enforcement response. Police can be there to provide chaperoning duties for health services, for reassurance to health services and to people within the community. But absolutely, the police shouldn't have been the forefront of a health crisis. That's certainly an area where you expect health services to step in, not police. So that would have been, number one. Number two, absolutely would have said, with respect, Premier, you write the laws, but you don't tell us how to police them, and we will make those decisions based on our own assessments. And one of those assessments being human rights, because that's something that police are acutely aware of, and it's drummed into them every second of every day when they're interacting with the community. And so I'm not sure why we just completely disregarded human rights when it came to policing a health crisis.
How did you feel when? Sorry, John, go.
No, I was just going to say, Hoodie, I mean, it's just not COVID either. I mean, the mismanagement of these people across the board. We've now learned from Triple O calls about what happened with Daniel Andrews and that accident. I mean, there's obviously a lot more detail to come out in relation to that. But these people's characters, they leave a fair bit to be desired when you really look into their makeup.
I agree. I think with Daniel Andrews, he was a career politician from the start, and he didn't know anything else. Internal word on the street, from within Labor was that when he was put up as Premier, they didn't actually think that he was going to get elected in 2014, and then they were stuck with him. But to his credit, he really, really grew into the role. And, as much as I despise the character of the man and the actions, he was very effective in his role because he was re-elected, and you can't really argue with that. So there was something in him and about him that resonated with people within the Victorian community, that you saw a section of the community that were happy with his response and in fact wanted him to go harder. And I think, they're the ones that we call the govern me harder daddy people, that really are just so desperate for that leadership in their lives. And I wonder, if you really sort of dissected those people and who they were and their upbringings and, maybe a lack of male role models and leadership in their life, that probably speaks to why they were attracted to something in Daniel Andrews, the paternal caretaker, if you will, of their lives during that period. Meanwhile, you had everybody on the other side, the entrepreneurs, the small businesses, the mums of children who, were acutely aware of the damage that was being done to their kids. On the other side, just going, this is crazy. What on earth are we doing? We don't need to be policed like this. We don't need to have such incredibly harsh lockdowns over something, that's a spicy flu at best. Where is the balance? Where is the conversation around if this COVID is a danger to people, well, which people specifically is it a danger to, and how is it that we can wrap ourselves as a community around the vulnerable and protect them and do what we've done for decades and years and hundreds of years over natural immunity, which, apparently is conspiracy theory now, but natural immunity is a real thing and it does work, and it's how you actually deal with pandemics in groups and societies. Healthy people catch it, they have a mild reaction, but then they get better, and as a result, when that disease is passed on, it's passed on as a weaker version, and that's how you help a community get through a pandemic. We didn't do that. We failed our people miserably, and we did that out of fear. We had a leader who was just fear-based And unfortunately, there was a group of people within the population that supported that, because they just didn't have that kind of character within themselves to stand up and take care of themselves.
Peter Credlin uncovered some emails apparently from Daniel Andrews' electoral advisors, advising him to fill the people with fear and then govern the daylights out of them, hit them hard, and you'll be re-elected every time as their national hero. And that seemed to be the playbook for all the Labor states, John. They all followed the same rule book, which was crazy because in the that thing that Scott Morrison set up, what did they call it? The National Cabinet? They were all advised not to do what they did, but they went and did it anyway. Apparently, their health advisors were saying, "Don't lock down, don't mandate," but they went against that anyway for their own political expediency. I think back on some of the images of those times, and I'm a bit concerned about a couple of things. But I wondered how you felt when you saw those high-rise towers in Flemington, those housing commission towers locked down, and people imprisoned there for a couple of weeks. That must have sickened you.
It was the epitome of a two-tiered policing, and I think I don't think that you can call it racist, but to me it felt like it had this racist undertone to it. He was basically saying there's a group of ethnic people that live in these towers, and we absolutely cannot trust them in any way, shape, or form to self-moderate if they are sick, because they're ethnic. So we're going to literally lock them in their homes and put a police guard around them so that we can keep everybody else safe from these people. It was the most bizarre action I've ever seen, and it's been proven that there were significant breaches of human rights. But are those people going to receive reparations or an apology? I doubt it.
I tell you what, Hoodie, when you reflect on those images and those visions in your mind, and you think of what they did, and you go back and you look through those videos that are on the computer and on YouTube and everywhere else. I mean, it's hard to not think that these people should be locked up forever and ever. I mean, I just don't know how you repair the minds of these grubs.
Look, I've got to reiterate once again, John, just because I talk about forgiveness, I don't mean that you don't hold people to account. What I'm saying, and I said too at the ASF conference where you were at, Krystle, that these people need to do jail time. At the very least, they need to do jail time. But it doesn't empower us to then carry the burden of hating these people into our lives, because they still control our outcomes, even though they may be behind bars. I don't want to see Daniel Andrews walk free at all. I want to see him punished for what he did. I want to see him held to account. But that doesn't mean that we have to keep hating them and all that sort of stuff. I think that's where I'm coming from. So there's a big part of me that's wanting to, and I think we demonstrated that at the rallies several times, John, some of the footage I was looking at today. But another thing that concerns me, Krystle, and I want you to comment on this if you can, there seems to be a dramatic lowering of standards in especially Victoria Police, to the extent that some of the footage we saw showed thugs in police uniforms, and some of the behaviour, especially of the young coppers, was reprehensible. It was. We saw that in that elderly woman who was pushed to the ground, hitting her head on the pavement, and then these officers with masks pulled under their chin, emptying 2 cans of mace into her face, pepper spray into her face. And so I'm wondering about that and what your perspective is on that, because I think your main role was in training, wasn't it?
Gender Equality and Inclusion Command, the most left-wing part of Victoria Police when I left. But I served 16 years in a multiple variety of roles, one of them also being training. I think what you're speaking to is similar to what we were just discussing before about the weak-minded and cowardice behaviour and the desperation of the people in Victoria who saw Daniel Andrews as a leader. We had that similar mentality in a cohort of police who were being bombarded daily with briefings about these evil freedom protesters who were the reason why lockdowns were continuing. So if there's ever an opportunity for accountability to occur, I think that what we should be making public is the briefings that police were being given, the information, the people's faces that were getting put up on the screens at Melbourne Convention Centre for 400 police to look at and say, hey, this is your target. And don't forget that the longer these protests go on for, the longer the lockdowns will be. So that's your children stuck at home, your wife and your husband who can't go to work because of these freedom protesters. That was the messaging that police that were working these protests were being given. They were very much being told we were the enemy, as in the protesters, and that the quicker we resolved it, the quicker the lockdowns would end. They were being given a carrot. So that was, I think quite concerning that was going on.
Yeah. And the public order response team, it's been rumoured that a lot of those guys were contractors. They weren't actually Victorian police. Have you got any information on that?
No, I think that would be highly unlikely as well. I think that they were all CERT members, and if they weren't current CERT members, they would have been certified. So they would have done the course previously and they were recalled back to the office because that CERT qualification lasts a certain period of time. They also can then, do any catch-up courses that they need to do. So they would have just boosted the numbers from the existing cohort that had done it in previous years. So one thing I was just thinking of just before, and I had lost my train of thought, was that on one of the buses, so there was a bus that was of cops that were being driven in from, one of the suburban stations because police members were getting pulled from everywhere to come into the city to deal with the protests. And the commander of that group of people was giving a briefing on the bus while it was travelling into the city, and he said on that bus, any and all use of force will be justified.
Oh.
Now, I don't know if you understand the gravity of that comment. Any and all use of force will be justified. That's a terrifying comment to come from the leader of a group of police. But then when you see the footage of the overreaction of police to these protests and the violence that was being used against these protests, I think you can see why police felt emboldened to act the way they did, because they were being told that they could and that they would get away with it. And they were being told that if they did this, that the lockdowns would end and their families could go back to work and their kids could go back to school.
That's frightening, John.
Yeah. I mean, what can you say to that? The one thing that stands out in my mind from the Victorian Police was, and can't remember it was a train station or where it was, but there was a person that was thrown to the ground by a police officer after they were obviously being a bit of a pest, whoever it was, the train station, but the complete overreaction and the way that head just cracked like a watermelon on the
killing.
Did he die? There were rumours that guy died.
No, as far as I am aware, he didn't die, but he did suffer injury as a result. But the police officer has been cleared. He was charged. It went to court and he was cleared, and the judge said that the force was proportionate. There's no words for that. It was not proportionate. The person involved, he'd been asked to leave several times, and yes, he was harassing staff, but you never are a one-up police officer in this day and age working on your own who have to use that kind of force because you're on your own and, it's only you and them. So the fight is between the two of you and you have to win. He had other members there. So this absolutely could have been dealt with two members taking an arm each, putting him to the ground, but not in the manner that they did, and cuffing him. It was just such a disproportionate response. And it was a response that you could see in the footage was a frustrated police officer who was letting his emotion get the better of him in the way that he physically interacted with that person. And that's wrong, and he shouldn't have done that. And it reflects poorly on the police. It causes people to lose faith in the police that we have and the police service, and it affects the integrity. It should be dealt with very seriously. And for a judge to turn around and say that it was a proportionate use of force, only sends the message to people to be fearful of your police. I don't know what other message you could take from that.
Where are we with the judiciary system? I mean, that's an area that I think we really haven't shown enough attention to, because I think that they have been an absolute disgrace. There has not, it doesn't matter at what level in the jury or the judicial system, there hasn't been anything that I can think of that has gone our way. I mean, I don't know how many police officers, teachers, nurses, doctors, paramedics went through industrial relations commissions, fair work commissions. Not one case, to the best of my knowledge, ever succeeded in I think there was thousands. I think in excess of 4,000. I might be wrong, but that's the sort of numbers I think we were talking about. Not one case. And then when you look at these cases like Kassam and my case versus Hazard, I mean, the judges were promoted. The judge in the Kassam matter was promoted to the High Court. The senior counsel for Brad Hazard against us was promoted to being a judge. I mean, look, you draw your own conclusions, but the judge in that case that had the video footage of what went on, I mean, Specsavers couldn't even get that wrong, could they? I mean, how bad is that? I mean, you're watching it on the video.
Yeah. I think that, what we're witnessing is a judiciary system that is completely politicised, and it's corrupted to the point that if you can't have faith in the people who are sitting at a bench to make these decisions, supposedly on the balance of fairness and what is just and what is right and what is the correct interpretation of the law, and they're not doing that, it's a broken system. And you talk about Julia Gillard doing a royal commission for institutionalised, the sex offences that occurred against children in institutions has been a really good thing. I think that a government that steps up and does a royal commission into our judiciary to see how badly broken it is and how much there is just a breeding ground of conflicts of interest that would not pass the pub test on anybody else, that's a government that, I'd respect.
The Pfizer case, there'll be more to say about that later. I mean, but there's another example of, when that verdict comes out, heaven help us, I tell you what, that'll be a two-part Club Grubbery episode, that will be.
Well, Judge Helen Roth's already been cleared, John.
But that's what I mean. What a joke. I mean, how could you, beyond belief?
She's been told by the Chief Justice that she has nothing to answer for.
Of course she doesn't. I mean, this is the problem. And I mean, when you think about it, I mean, the police, all these organisations that are there to protect us, like health and safety branches of state governments, work cover, all these, what are they doing? I mean, I can't think of one event, say a car accident, where they found some mechanical fault. If somebody died, they wouldn't go back and look at anyone in the chain of responsibility, from the person who sold the car, from the person who fixed it, to the person driving it. Everyone is in the system, gets looked at. But look at COVID. How many people have died from the vaccines? I don't know how many times I've been to the police station to try and report crimes. I mean, these are crimes. I don't care what you say. I mean, people are dead. Surely, if there's been foul play, misinformation, misadventure, whatever you want to call it, you've got to look at it. I mean, look at Jared Rennick. Jared Rennick has highlighted a case where a 52-year-old died having a heart attack in front of his son and his daughter. And this case was brought up in the Kassam v. Hazard case. It was ignored. Never acted on it.
And the TGA have ignored it in Senate estimates.
TGA have ignored it. Now, the pathologist said it was as a result of the Pfizer vaccine. TGA did nothing.
Yeah. And they won't. But we can't expect them to. They are part of the corrupt system. They are not going to, and we are not going to see anybody held to account under the current government administration that exists at an Australian level, federal level, and state level. We need to root them out. We change the government, then we change the heads of all of these places, and you watch how quickly these decisions change when you have people in there who are going to give a balanced view and assess the evidence on its merit. and come to the conclusion that most rationally minded people will come to. We know that these decisions are wrong. It's in your gut. You don't need to be the expert. You don't need to be a lawyer. You just need to look at the bare bone facts to know that the decisions that they're coming to are corrupted decisions, and they are not going to change no matter how much pressure we put on them. The only way this is going to change is we root them out politically, we root out the bureaucrats, we change the heads of these departments, we hold people to account, we hold our royal commissions, we show people what happens. You want to try this again, this is what's going to happen. You're going to end up in jail, just like Dan Andrews and the rest of them.
Yeah.
And we will see justice eventually if we change it at a political level.
The Therapeutic Goods Administration that gave the green tick for these vaccines, they were the authority that gave the approvals. They have an obligation to check into what has caused these unexplained deaths, because they're the authority that made these vaccines, so-called vaccines, legal in this country. Now, to say that we're not interested in the pathology, as the head of the TGA did in that committee hearing, that there is no way that passes a pub test. I mean, that to me, that's like, that's like saying to me, if there was a problem in an aeroplane that I had an accident in because it had contaminated fuel in it, and I could see the engineer and the refueler arguing over a water sample that came out of the fuel tank, and I didn't want to know about the conversation, what's going on down there, guys, because I'm at the pointy end of this thing. That doesn't pass the pub test. I mean, I would want to know. And if the engineer said to me, well, it's all right, it's really only an engineering matter, I'd say, no. It's a matter that involves me, because I'm going to leave you guys behind and go aviating. None of this passes a pub test. I mean, it just beggars belief. I'm sick and tired of these bureaucrats who just say, oh, no, that's not my department. Sorry.
Yeah, they pass the buck.
They just pass the buck.
Well,
So
I'll tell you what, this Senate estimates, it gives me the shits, I've got to say. I mean, these grubs that get in there and will not answer a bloody question, they go round and round in circles. I tell you what, they ought to bring in a law to say that these people give a direct answer or they're fired.
Yep.
Fired.
I agree. We have this thing in Victoria where you can be summoned to attend a particular court where, from a criminal perspective, and you must give evidence. You can't refuse to answer a question. You can't scapegoat it. You have to answer it. It's the Office of the Chief Examiner, I believe. So I'm not sure why at a Senate estimates that same level of requirement isn't given. But these people receive media training and they're taught how to dance around the question and, run down the clock so that then there's less time and then the senator doesn't have an opportunity for that, give and take question and answer type response to elicit what we need. At the end of the day, what we see is just the evidence of their inability to answer the questions. And, to my mind, the sooner libertarians get in power and we get rid of the TGA, the better, because they're never going to answer the questions. And let's put some people in charge that are prepared to get after, the truth of the matter and share that with the public.
Everyone in there should be giving evidence under oath.
Mm.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of the chairperson of these committees treating the bureaucrats like, we're privileged to have you here. It's an honour that we don't want to offend you because we're so grateful you've given us your time.
And you only gave Mrs. Smith the paperwork half an hour ago. Well, so what? Mrs. Smith's had the bloody paperwork for bloody 5 years, likely. And they've sat on their asses and done nothing.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
And then at the root of all of that, if you think about it, it's a massive taxpayer expense running these Senate estimates, and we're not getting value for money out of them. So you're right, John. I think that there does need to be some changes to law with how those Senate estimates are run, and a requirement to give evidence under oath, and that you are compelled to answer all questions that are put before you. And I don't recall is not a satisfactory answer.
Well, look, a senator of the Commonwealth of Australia is the highest lawmaking authority in the land. They are the top cops, and they just seem to be treated with disdain. And And look, it just sickens me to see what Jared Rennick and Malcolm Roberts and these guys go through in estimates. Boy, oh boy, I don't know how they don't just spit chips. But I guess we've done enough of that tonight. We need to bring this to a close, Krystle. But one final question from me. I'll give John another crack too. But all right, you're in the driver's seat. You know the state of the country. You're seeing it through your particular lens. It's clear to me that the solutions you're thinking you've already articulated is a libertarian approach to government where the government is afraid of the people, not the other way around.
Absolutely. And West, the leaders of West, or Klaus Schwab, the leader of whatever he's the leader of, the organisation that he runs, he said that the biggest threat to his plan are libertarians. He's come out on record and said that. So, look, I think that stands for something. And what that stands for is that, yes, the will of the people and the will of libertarians to come in and just get government out of the way, completely dismantle that. It's a scary thing for them. It's a very powerful thing for us, because when you get libertarians in power to get government out the way, what you see is an entire nation flourish. And we get to really see what our people are capable of when they're left the hell alone.
I don't think all those people in that photo behind you, John, would disagree with that.
No, I don't think they would, Hoodie. I think they would concur absolutely. It's a crazy world we're in, and let's hope that it's getting better. But where do the police find themselves now in Victoria, Krystle? I mean, in New South Wales, former officers like Justin Paul, Natalie Vassallo, they've been sacked under this 181D, and Karen Webb, the Commissioner of New South Wales Police, another one that should be booted as far as you could kick her, won't let these guys back in. Is that the same situation in Victoria?
Yeah. You can join Victoria Police without having been vaccinated against COVID, but you can't rejoin Victoria Police if you were a police officer and you didn't get the vaccination when you were told to do so. So that's the current situation, and it is ridiculous. And honestly, the police are suffering the consequences of that. They are understaffed. They are overworked. They have next to no resources. They have no faith from the community. They've got no favour from the community. They're begging for a half-decent pay rise, and most of the community just don't care. Why should we give you a pay rise when you didn't stand for us when it mattered? You don't turn up when the robber's at my front door. There's not a lot of value there.
Any judicial officer that has backed these decisions in should be stripped of their law degrees, should be removed from their office. I mean, that is just human rights 101.
Yep.
Stripped, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. You don't deserve to practice law, and you should certainly not be in any position of authority when it comes to determining whether people have broken the law for not taking a vaccine at work. It's an absolute disgrace. Lyndall Dean, the Deputy Fair Work Commissioner, got it 100% right, and she was made to look like a fool by her colleagues, bullied, harassed, very grubby behaviour. In fact, they promoted somebody within that system for saying that you must get the vaccines, you must do this. Basically, everyone else is a cooker. They were promoted. Lyndall Dean had to be retrained.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I think you are right, John. We do need to see some very harsh consequences for a large cohort of our society that perpetuated this, because if we don't see harsh consequences, then we're destined to repeat this over and over again. And Graham, to your point, where the data showed that if you rule by fear, that you'll get re-elected, well, that's obviously been proven to be correct. So why on earth would governments of the future deviate from what they know works? Unless you wake people up, you get people on board, you get them politically engaged. This changes when we change our politics. So I would just urge anybody that's listening or watching this to look up your local Libertarian Party, sign up, become a member, get involved, go to your branch meetings, see what it's about. And trust me, there is not one single political party out there that you're going to agree with of every single policy that they have. But overall, you're going to look at libertarian policy and you're going to go, yes, yes, yes. Well, I don't know about that, but if it works for other people, then as long as it doesn't harm me, I don't care. And that's where you'll end up, and you'll want to join the fight, because this is how we change things. It's through politics, and it's through the Libertarian Party of Australia.
Well, if you're a libertarian at heart, you're going to that's how you're going to see it anyway. Because okay, that may not fit with me, but that's the way the world works, and that's great. So it's onward and upward from here. We've got a job ahead of us. Let's hope that this misinformation bill falls over, and we start to see some changes. I think it's change is inevitable with what's going on in the States at the moment. And what's happening here in Australia with the Port Hedland move, it's been great. I know you're not right across that, Krystle, but people who've been lobbying at the grassroots are starting to see reward for their effort. And Australia, for the rest of you watching this, you get the government you deserve. When you enable bad government, that's what you're stuck with, and you enable it when you don't care. So you need to wake up. You need to wake up. So we customarily close with a prayer, Krystle. I hope you don't mind.
For it.
Dear Lord Father in heaven, we seek truth, and in the seeking of truth, we seek compassion, and we seek the restoration of the great Southland of the Holy Spirit. And for that, we need the guiding of the Holy Spirit, and we ask for it in bucket loads in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Johnny Larder, you've often been heard to say,
you just couldn't make this stuff up.
You couldn't stay out of the trees, everyone. We love you, and that's why we're doing this stuff. Well, somebody had a go this morning that, we're just ripping people off, collecting money and all that sort of stuff. Hello? How many coffees can you buy in a week from what we get on donations, John?
Not many. About as many as I'm selling.
2 or 3.
Look, Graham, to be honest, unless those people that are complaining about that have a news feed full of the corruption and wasteful spending at a government level, then you know that they're just trolls, and that you're obviously agitating at the right levels, and that's a good thing. I think the louder the noise against you that are calling you any sorts of names that they call you, that's a good thing, because it means that you're reaching people and that you're agitating people that want you to stay silent, and they're hoping that by bullying you and name calling you, that that's exactly what you do. And that's when you go harder, Graham. Go harder.
Go harder. Well, I find it entertaining these days. I've become so used to it. Johnny gets away with it for some reason. Butter wouldn't melt in Johnny's mouth, but although you were on a fake list of the 28 pedophiles, John. You and I shared the bottom of the list.
It's better.
Anyway, that's all good. Krystle Mitchell, it was lovely catching up with you on the weekend. I wish we had more time to speak. I wish I'd been able to go with a few other people to sit around your 12-seat table and eat the sourdough. Did it eventually rise?
It was excellent. It was nice and warm, and we put some butter on, and it melted. It was delicious. So,
all right.
Very nice. Hey, look, if you're here on the 20th of December, I'm hosting another get-together. So you're welcome to pop in, and there'll be some more sourdough. I'll have a couple of different ones on the day. So you can try the rye, you can try the spelt, and then I'll just have a basic white.
Well, if you throw a bottle of red wine in there, Johnny Larder will be on the doorstep with me, I can tell you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Krystle. It's been very refreshing talking to you. I love your approach to this, and all the best for the future. And please let us know if we can talk to you about anything else again, because the things you have to say are very topical. They're very interesting, and I know our audience is going to love them. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, Graham. Thanks, John.
Thanks,
all right, everybody. Thanks for watching Club Grubbery. Another packed week, and Suzanne Burns, our production admin, is working on some great interviews. It's just us keeping up with them, John. That's going to be the problem. But we look forward to seeing you next time on Club Grubbery. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.